types of kales.
Uh-huh.
And they're quite sweet. Parsley.
Oh, this kale as well.
That's curly kale. Yep.
Can I eat them?
You can eat some raw and see what you think.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, we used to make this into kale chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, dehydrated. Thank you. Oh, yum.
Things that produce nitrogen from the air, such as field peas. This is field peas. These ones here are vetch, which is another legume. And we have got some fenugreek, which is another legume. You know, fenugreek, the
Yes.
spice. That's it there.
Oh, how do you tell it is
Oh,
fenugreek?
just experience. And the other one is faba beans, which is a cousin of broad beans. So that's 4 different legumes we've got growing.
Wow. So
And-
that's why it's so rich in nitrogen.
It'll be really good to feed the crop. So we don't need any fertilisers as such.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Auspicious.
Yes.
Whoa.
So what happens in
Yes.
spring, this will be up this high.
Wow.
Oh, you should have seen the summer one. We grew a garlic crop here on a fifth of an acre. And we had a summer green manure, and it was the vetch.
In biodynamics, it was just.
I think if quartz ever becomes in short supply, there's another crystal that Steiner mentioned that's possible, but not quite as good. But in South America, they have quartz crystals that you probably couldn't get your arm around.
Right.
So-
But what if, let's say, if ever one day quartz goes?
Then
No,
there's
I'm
an
so
alternative
shocked.
crystal that you can use.
What is that?
I can't remember the name of it because we don't use it. There's so much quartz. You know, there's a beach in South Australia where in the old days they would come to Australia to load up wheat to take to England, but they had to have heavy weight in the bottom of the ship when they were coming empty from England, and that was quartz crystal from England. And they just shovel it all out on the beach, and you can go and pick it up.
Next time when I have clear quartz, I'll know where to bring. I'll bring it to a biodynamics farm. My dad loves crystals.
Yeah.
When he passed away, I didn't know what to do with them, so I had it,
Uh-huh.
you know, scattered into the ocean.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was like heavy energies.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, look at the rainbow.
Beautiful. We planted all these trees
Yes.
too, Catherine. That's a Tasmanian blue gum. That'll go really
What is the
high.
purpose of that tree?
It's to stop the wind. We get a lot of wind from the northwest, and we also get wind from the southwest. But the northwest is the worst. So we need to plant a lot of trees. Pure water in there. Actually, it's a bit moister down the bottom.
And it's made of cow manure?
That's from cow manure that's been put in a cow horn in autumn. Look how soft that is.
Yeah, and it doesn't smell at all.
No. And there's 500 million aerobic bacteria per gram.
Just like
that's why it
fermented
works.
meat. The soil.
That'll convert the soil so beautifully.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. Done. Yeah. And this is peat moss around it.
Inside here is peat moss, packed in very tight, dry peat moss.
And the purpose of it is to prevent radiation?
Prevents electromagnetic radiation, probably telephone, whatever
Right.
those rays are. We have to store it away from any smells like petrol or anything like that too.
What about that one?
That's the lid of a small box, which is under here. This is a small box. Can you see the hole in there?
Yes.
That's for up to maybe 2 acres
I see.
for a small garden. That's also filled with peat moss. And there's a big farm size one under here
Wow.
with plenty of huntsmen, I think, spiders.
Oh, wow.
Well, not now.
What is inside?
Well, we put these big earthenware crocks in and fill them with 500 too.
But it's empty now here.
It's empty, I don't use that one. But that's all peat moss as well, yeah.
Wow, of course.
See, that's really good rubbly structure there. So dry though, very surprised.
Why is it so dry?
We haven't had much rain. Yeah. But also the other thing is that this biodynamic soils can absorb a lot more moisture. You know how there's flooding problems everywhere?
Right.
It's because they've compacted the soil and the humus levels are low. Humus can hold 75% of its volume as water. If you've got a lot of humus in the soil, they've done tests in Australia where when the rain comes, it goes into a biodynamic soil a lot quicker than into a conventional soil, and it keeps going in. Whereas often there'll be just water lying on top on a conventional soil, and then the next day the wind comes and it all dries out. So biodynamic soils can keep growing crops a lot longer in a dry spell, for instance.
Hey, finish up the hay. Oh yeah. Where are you going? Uh-oh, it's raining. Oops. It's cold.
Rainwater usually. We put our small amount of 500 in and we stir it to get a vortex.
Is it like clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Both.
No, both?
It goes like this to get a vortex,
Right.
and then as soon as we get a deep vortex, it goes the other way. It creates a chaos. You know, when you're an artist or a poet or you've got some creative thing to do, you can get quite tense in
Yes.
that state of chaos.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you come out the other side and you
Right.
know what you want to do.
Yes.
That's what that does. It not only puts a lot of oxygen in over 1 hour stirring, 1 hour exactly, a lot of oxygen which makes those microbes proliferate a lot, but it also draws in the harmony of the solar system. Because you think of the planets being pulled by the sun from
Yes.
the centre, and they go round and round.
Right.
That's similar to what happens here. That's a very old-fashioned machine. There's a little one for 2 acres in the corner. And this is our spray rig. It's all got to be copper or stainless steel or enamel, because any other metal will affect the 500 quality.
I see.
And this one just goes back and forth in big droplets about 10 metres wide on the back of the tractor. So we spray the whole farm twice a year.
Nice.
The pink represents the humus pockets in the soil, the colloidal humus. These are the vertical roots that take up water, and these are the fine hair roots that go into the humus to feed. And when the sun shines and it's warm, the little white hair feeder roots go into the humus pockets and feed. And so the plant gets exactly what it needs according to the sun's dictate. It's therefore in balance. When it wants to drink, which plants have to do virtually all the time, like we have to breathe, it drinks pure water because the nutrients are contained in the colloidal humus, right?
Right.
They're not spread throughout the soil water. So that the plant becomes upright, not a dark green colour, but a nice natural green. In biodynamics we talk about glow green.
What?
Glow green. Glow green.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Glow green.
Glow green.
Nice.
And you have a good crop of beans on this bean plant. And contrast that with, this is outside nature's organisation. This is like if you put a water-soluble fertiliser on the soil. The pink shows all the nutrients from that water-soluble fertiliser that then dissolve in the soil water and spread through the soil water.
This is like the usual conventional
Yeah,
farming that
or it can
happens.
be if you use raw manures or badly made compost.
Right.
You think you're organic, but you're actually doing the same thing.
Right.
Now, when the plant takes up water, because the plant lets water vapour go through the leaves, called transpiration.
Yes.
When it does that, it has to keep taking up water. So it doesn't matter what the sun says. When this plant drinks, it has to feed as well. Even if it's cold, the sun's not out, it's cloudy, it's still feeding. So the plant cells get too much salts in there, or nutrients in the cells. They try to take up more water, but what happens? They get more nutrients. So they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You get these blown up plants that are dark, often bluey green. The leaves are sort of bloated and hanging down.
Right.
That's when insects and disease come. That's what
Oh,
nature
interesting.
intends. They come to take out the weak things. Conventional plants are weak.
Right. Okay.
That's why they have to then spray chemicals to kill insects and stop diseases starting. Whereas our plants are much more healthy.
And is
and
that why
they're-
biodynamics producers are usually smaller, but they taste sweeter and richer?
It's not always smaller,
Not
but
always.
that's often the case, but not always.
Because the conventional ones are really huge.
Yeah, often.
Yeah, often very
Often
big.
you'll see awful big, harsh-looking, rough-looking. Sculpted forms of buds with the light.
Ingrid Häbler has a touch of refinement. Men are much too crude and powerful, or they play
About
too
the
quickly.
pianist. A woman pianist plays this much better than men, he said.
The musicologists sometimes write of this concerto that it is already romantic. It is actually touched by the experience of death. This here is a letter by Mozart, in which he complains bitterly to a bureaucrat in Mannheim. This is a typical Aboriginal painting. The Europeans don't see a tree like that. They're just exquisite. And then the red stone and the first mountain range, and then the much lower one further in the background. That is how an Aborigine sees this. And I love that painting very much, and it is probably as near as I will come to the red stones in my life.
That's a letter from Lily Kalisko, who with her husband, she actually did most of the early research on biodynamics. Her husband died in the 1930s, but she kept going for another 20 years or so.
Right.
And I can show you the book. I did show you the book, Agriculture of Tomorrow, that big photocopy copy.
Oh yes, the first book.
So she wrote and said that Alex could copy the book.
Oh,
she
nice.
gave personal permission. She knew Alex well. So she
Dr.
gave me
Steiner would be
permission to
pleased
copy the
hear
book.
from your efforts extending over many years.
I had been in touch with Pfeiffer, in particular Lily Kalisko, though. She had a very great influence on me with her book Agriculture of Tomorrow. I learned that Pfeiffer had worked with her and Steiner
there.
with her in particular, but Steiner, in perfecting the preparations. Steiner gave him the task of scientifically finalizing how the preparations are made and how they should be used, in what quantities, how sprayed in big droplets. I abided by all that and had tremendous result within 1 year already, as is documented in my literature, and likewise the farmers that started with me in biodynamics. The most important part of a house is the roof. The second most important part is the walls. And I honor walls. I don't want them covered with mortar and with a prefixed idea of painting, whether it is in little dots with a hand brush or whatever. This is the original design of my skyscraper. That is all I had to go into the competition with very leading architects. They saw that and they knew immediately he's got a facade. And they knew that I had won the competition. And that paid, I got $22,000 sort of 35 or 40 years ago, and that paid $16,000 for the kindergarten building in the first school. This would have been the main theater hall of the Melbourne Steiner School. They cut it down from here like this, terrible. Whereas this, well, I have to speak of my architecture separately probably.
That's the model of a building.
Every surface, every dimension is not the same left and right, but in balance. There would have been a wonderful acoustic in there, as I have described in my book Active Perception. The windows would have been here. It is difficult to find a spot for windows if one just puts it somewhere in a wall. Here it was part of the actual structure to have the windows. And one can see the harmony of that, and yet all of this, there is no wall at the bottom or at the top that is vertical.
He made that model too.
Beautiful.
This building.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
It would be lovely if it was built one day, wouldn't it, somewhere.
Yeah. Wow.
Imagine the work he put into that. Gosh.
Could even be a musical concert hall.
Oh, it would. They're all acoustically built.
Good morning! I'm here! Anna?
I don't know. She's
Oh.
possibly got some other jobs to do.
Symmetry of the leaves.
Yeah,
Uprightness
uprightness.
and symmetry. Yay.
We call that upper plant expression.
Sorry?
Upper plant expression.
Upper plant. Again. Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine checking in with John Bradshaw, writer and farmer, biodynamics farmer. Yesterday, we were very happy to be able to visit Alex Podolinsky's wake service, met so many wonderful biodynamics farmers, and he shared so many beautiful work, left behind so much meaningful, valuable work for humanity. And anyway, there are a lot of things that we would like to share, but today we have a short time, and we got some questions from the last video we made, people asking about what is the horn that we were talking about and what is the 500 that we were talking about. So we thought we'd get John to share more about it. So yeah.
What we do, which is based on Rudolf Steiner's suggestions back in 1924, is we fill a cow horn with biodynamic cow manure. It's got to be very high quality cow
Why
manure.
cow manure?
Because the cow's got the most evolved digestive system of any domestic animal.
4 stomachs.
It's got 4 stomachs, and so the manure that comes out is really refined already. And Steiner suggested that was by far the best manure to use.
So we can't use like bear manure or
No.
human manure.
No, definitely not.
Definitely cow manure.
So what we do is we fill many horns. In Australia we're doing well over 1 million acres of biodynamics, so we have to have a lot of horns. In one pit in the soil there could be 100,000 or 200,000 horns. They're put down in autumn, filled with cow manure, and they're laid down almost horizontally, but with a little bit of a slope downhill so that the water will drain out. And yes, we make very big pits filled with these, and we dig them up in spring. And what that cow manure has turned into is this magical substance called 500.
It's very rubbery.
It's a pure colloidal humus, which is the food of plants, the natural food
People
of plants.
must be thinking that because it's cow manure, it could sting, but actually it doesn't sting at all.
It doesn't smell at all.
In fact, it smells very good.
And if you dissolve some 500 in a bucket of water, a cow will drink it. But a cow would never go near a bucket of water with raw cow manure in it.
Right.
So that's totally transformed. It's filled with aerobic bacteria, microbes. This amount would probably do nearly an acre.
An acre.
That's all we need. In Australia we use 1.25 ounces or 35 grams to the acre. We put this in warm, pure water, and we stir it in a special way for 1 hour, exactly 1 hour.
So that's a special way of stirring.
We stir so that we get a deep vortex in the water, a vigorous vortex, and then we go the other way and make a chaos, so there are a lot of bubbles. Now there are several things happening there. One of the obvious ones is it's oxygenating the water, and so the microbes that are already in the 500 are proliferating just like they do in bread yeast, with, when you're making bread or beer or so on. And when we spray that out in large droplets over the whole farm, in usually spring and autumn, that will transform your soil.
So this is 500.
This is actually 500 with the 6 compost preparations that Steiner also suggested, which are made from herbs, various herbs and natural materials.
What are the herbs?
Oh, can I remember them all? Well, we've got oakbark, which is not a herb. We've got stinging nettle, yarrow, chamomile. Where do we go from there? Dandelion flowers.
Camellia?
And valerian flowers.
Valerian, got it.
So they're the materials we make the 6 compost preparations from. And Alex Podolinsky worked out a way of incorporating those with the 500 that comes out of the horn.
Right.
It goes through another sort of fermentation process, and we end up with what we call prepared 500. And through extensive testing, that's been shown to be much more powerful than 500 by itself.
So if people have acres of land and farms, then this is definitely one of the ways to heal the soil of our Mother Nature.
Yes.
So as long as there are farmers having huge lands, it's always so great to practice biodynamics.
There's nothing in organics, ordinary organics, that will do what this does. This is so powerful. It will change the colour of the soil, it will deepen soil, it will turn clay into beautiful friable soil over a period of time.
And for people like us who have like gardens and homes or small little yard,
it's just as applicable.
It's just as applicable. And we were sharing about, we were talking about, if we are just like, simple householders having a simple yard, there's no need for us to prepare the 500.
No, people often say to me, where do I get the cow horns? That's their first question. And I say, well, if you wanted to learn the piano, would your first question be, how do I make a piano?
No.
It's very difficult to make this.
Right.
Well, to make really good quality 500 takes many years.
And a horn, good horn.
You need a lot of horns too. But it takes a lot of experience to know how to make good 500. So it's only $1.50 an acre in Australia.
$1.50 for 500 for an acre of land.
For 1 acre, yeah.
So imagine it's just a yard, we don't even need this much.
No.
No.
Well,
yeah.
no. The minimum you can stir effectively in water is half an acre
Right.
of this. So you'd have to pour a little bit away. half an acre of water, so you can actually put a quarter acre of
Right.
500 in it. You can put it in at a little less concentrated.
So like for people like us, like myself, if I have a yard and I'm going to do gardening and planting of vegetables and crops, I'll just have to buy this 500 and I can start.
Yeah.
You know,
So you,
unless,
you just buy a quarter of an acre of it, and if you've only got a tenth of an acre of a garden, it doesn't matter, just
So
pour the rest on
right.
the compost heap when you
It goes
finish.
a long way, unless I'm going bigger than just a yard,
And
do
if
a
you've
farm.
got 5,000 acres, it's not a huge expense for a farmer, $1.50 an acre
Yeah,
to do the whole farm.
because I've seen, you know, like that, you know, 500 selling at $45 for a tube, which is like, I was like thinking, this is so expensive, how would people, like normal people afford? And, you know, a lot of people have this conception of eating organic is only for the rich people, you know, and biodynamics being advanced organic, it sometimes keeps people away because they think that biodynamics food is only for the rich of the rich. It's like, you know, organic is for the rich and then biodynamics, oh no, you know, it's going to be like for the very, very, very rich, so we can't afford it.
When we sell our vegetables at farmers markets, and there's such a big demand,
Right.
we often go into the supermarket to just compare.
Right.
And for instance, the parsley, our bunches of parsley, for a start, they're fresh. They've been picked the day before and put in the cool room. The supermarket ones are about a third of the size. They're 50 cents dearer for conventional parsley. But, you know, in general, our prices are very similar to what you pay in a supermarket for conventional rubbish.
Right. This is the powdered 501. See, it's finely powdered by machines, metal machines, right? It's powdered,
Sorry?
right? How is it powdered? We can do this in a blender.
It's mechanically broken up. This is the quartz crystals that we use to make 501. We need a clear quartz crystal, good quality one. And sadly, we break them up because they're so beautiful. But this quartz crystal here, I'm guessing would do about 40 or 50 acres.
40
we
or
only
50
need 1
acres.
gram conditions where you've had a lot of cloudy weather, not a lot of sunlight, too much rain. Maybe you've made a mistake and watered too much and then it's rained. Your plants, even though they're biodynamic, with the biodynamic preparations, the plants will have an upright expression.
Upright expression. I saw that a lot
Not
in the
floppy,
farm. Yeah.
you know, not full of artificial fertilizer, salts and so on
Right.
that make it floppy and too big. But even then, even with the biodynamics, if you get too much water or too much fertility, sometimes will make them go down a little bit. We spray this on a still sunny morning, early in the morning.
Yes.
We stir it in a similar way to what we do with the 500, but we only use 1 gram to the acre with this. It's very small amount. It's not homeopathic. Some people say biodynamics is homeopathics. That's not true.
Okay.
Homeopathics is where you've diluted the substance so much that really physically there's nothing left but forces. With this, we've still got our 1 gram. Each little talcum powder fine particle is still a quartz crystal. It's got still this crystallinity. And when you stir that for 1 hour, similar to what we do with the 500, and then spray it out high in the air on a still sunny morning, and it tinkles down, it's so powerful that farmers who are doing large acres have to wear protection because they'll get sunburned,
Oh, wow.
because that's how powerful it just brings a lot of sun power into the
Right.
plants, and the plants within a day or two will be upright again.
How biodynamics farming can actually shift and change your way of being and your health and your
With this, we
creativity.
can transform not just the soil into beautiful, rich, humus-rich, biologically active, well-structured, rubbly soil that's getting deeper and deeper and produces most wonderful flavoured and quality plants and animals. We can transform nature as well.
Yes,
It
yes.
transforms nature on a vast scale.
Right.
And then it transforms us when
Us
we
as
eat
well,
it as well.
because we are living, you know, in harmony with nature. The reason why we fall sick is because we think that we are separate and independent from nature, but most of the time we are not. As much as our ego thinks that we are very, you know, strong, powerful, we can live without nature, that's when,
Yeah.
things happen, you know, destructions, problems comes along the way,
Hmm.
obstacles, etc. Anyway, so nice having John sharing so much with us, and thank you all for listening. So we'll check in again. I'll try to make, you know, put together the photos in a nice video later on and share more with you. This is the horn that I'm gonna take away with me. All right, bye. Thank you
Bye.
all. Yay.
River water will make it look a bit darker.
Silver water. Silver water?
This is river water. One bit of the grain essentially does that. You don't know who to explain
Okay.
that we need, when we're stirring 500 or 501, we need stainless steel.
Okay.
Or you could use copper or brass, but stainless steel buckets are fairly easy to come by. We don't use plastic because plastic leaches chemicals, which can affect the 500, the microbes and so on. So we need pure water. Let's say we haven't got 500 in here, we're just doing this to demonstrate the stirring, but it'll be the best water we've got. In our case, it's rainwater from a concrete tank, very clean, and it's got to be warmed up to around about 35 degrees Celsius, just under blood heat. We put the 500 in. This would be about 1.5 gallons, which is enough to do half an acre of 500. But in a small garden, you can actually halve the amount of 500. So you put a quarter acre in, into the 1.5 gallons, but you spray the whole amount of water so that you've covered your quarter acre. If you're only doing a tenth of an acre, you just measure the appropriate amount of water. Now the stirring technique, we have to make a deep vortex, and as soon as we have a deep straight-sided vortex, then we break it and go the other way and create a chaos, which brings a lot of oxygen in. It's doing other things as well, but we won't go into that at the moment. We start in the middle with a loose wrist, as fast as we can, and then gradually move out. So you can see that we've got the deep vortex, it's fairly straight-sided, and then we go the other way and make a chaos.
And what does the chaos do? How does it affect the 500?
I'll stop stirring for the moment. Well, apart from a huge amount of oxygen that's going in, that's helping those microbes really proliferate during the 1 hour of stirring, Alex Podolinsky likens it to the pulling action of the sun on the planets, makes the planets go round and round the sun. So we're actually pulling something into this as well. It's mirroring the harmony of the solar system in a way. What it's actually doing in detail, it'll take probably a few hundred years to really flesh that out, I think. But we know this is what Steiner suggested to do. We know the oxygenation is an obvious thing that's improving or making it even stronger. But the whole picture won't emerge for a long time, I guess, really. But we know that it works. It's been so thoroughly tested in Australia on millions of acres since the early 50s, really, with Alex Podolinsky's development of biodynamics here. So anyway, I'll do a bit more stirring.
An hour.
You do this for 1 hour. Now when you get tired, I can usually do 20 minutes on my best arm, which is my left arm, and I'll get pretty tired, so I then change over to my right arm. Now, your two arms will stir a little bit differently, but not enough to interfere with the process. So you simply take your one hand out and go with your other hand and keep going. Now, if you, some people would like to have a group of people to take turns. It doesn't work very well because every individual has a totally different hand and a totally different way of stirring, even that within the parameters we require, so that you get that deep vortex with straight sides and you get the bubbling chaos, really vigorous bubbling chaos.
Can I try?
You can try, you have to try.
Yeah, come.
I shall hold the phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to use my right hand.
Sorry? Yeah. Now, as soon as you get that deep vortex, okay, stop. You forgot to start in the middle. So start in the middle like that, and you get the water moving quickly.
Okay.
And when it's moving and you've got a vortex partly formed, then you go wider.
Okay, got it.
And as soon as you get it upright, nice straight-sided deep vortex, you reverse it. You don't hang on to it and admire it for too long.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Let me try it.
Loose wrist. Let your hand flop around. It has more power. And then move that wider. That's pretty good. Now you can go the other way. Yeah. And come back into the centre while you're doing that chaos. Go wider. Okay, now reverse. Now that was a little bit skinny.
Yeah.
You didn't feel you didn't really get a lot of bubbles that time.
Okay, let's try. Let's keep
It's
trying.
something that when you start, you're a bit clumsy. Because if you do 1 hour stirring, you're pretty good by the end of it because you've had a lot of practice. So you've got a pretty good vortex. You can reverse it as soon as you get it. Now, you hold the phone.
Okay.
Again, you need to be a bit more vigorous. So in the middle, see, loose wrist like that. And bend your fingers up. Like if you've got an earthenware crock, I used to stir in an earthenware crock, and the first few times I did it, I let my fingernails drag on the bottom. Big mistake. You wear your fingernails right down.
Right.
So just bend your fingers up like that, so that you can get your hand in a bit deeper. This is not a lot of water. We could actually have probably had a little bit more, but anyway. So as soon as you get it moving fast, move out wider, straighten, come back into the middle. Now, some people can actually start stirring straight away in the opposite direction. My hand's a bit bigger, so I've got to control it a little bit more like that.
Okay, let me try it again.
I'll show you if I try to stir in the opposite direction immediately. It's a bit too splashing, a bit too much. You don't want to bash the water. You want to have a vigorous bubbling chaos. This is too soft. This is too slow. You'll never get a vortex, right? And if you're breaking it too gently, you're not going to get enough bubbles. Not enough oxygen or enough vigour.
Wow. Okay,
So
let's try again.
Yeah, let's try again.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you to change it yourself. Yeah? As soon as you feel it's really starting to move, then move out wider and straighten it. And as soon as you feel it's a good vortex, then you break it. And a little bit more vigorously.
Yeah.
A little bit more of a pass. Yeah, look at it. That's the idea. And the key is when you're doing it by hand for an hour, you have to relax.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and you have to be sitting comfortably, not bending over like you are. Sitting beside it probably won't work. I used to kneel down actually in front of it, and then I worked out that if I sat on the bench
Right.
and I had the bucket in front of me on the bench and I had a cushion under me, that would be pretty comfortable. But with no,
Well, imagine doing
and you
this.
don't want round shoulders on it.
Yes.
If you're not getting the water moving fast enough and you go outside, you're still going to have round shoulders, you see.
Okay.
That's not a really good vortex like that.
So it needs to be
It's,
chaotic.
just a bit of practice and you get it. And then of course on bigger properties they use stirring machines that replicate hand stirring. They're not timed, so when the vortex gets up to the correct height, the engine will cut out and then it'll cut in reverse direction. So
Cool.
it's just nearly, for any amount over, I think it was 12 gallons, they found that a machine actually stirs better than a human. Under 12 gallons a human can do a better quality job, but the machine is really good.
Got it. Thank you.